I'm from Seattle. I'm from a small town called Mercer Island, Washington. Grew up there since what, I was 2 years old. My parents were all born here in Korea, and then we moved to Seattle. My father was in the U.S. Army since the early 1950s, um, when he had, immigrated to the U.S. And then he joined the U.S. Army and ended up coming back to Korea to be a military contractor, and that's what ended up me being born on that base. My father, from what I remember him telling me, was that he heard that Washington had a very good educational system, and there was this neighborhood in Seattle called Mercer Island, and it's a good place to raise a family. So he had taken that advice and decided to just move us all there. So at that time, it was me and obviously my mother and father. My sister, who is still there now, was born in Seattle and continues to live there now. Grew up in this predominantly Jewish neighborhood with not very many Asian Americans in my town. I knew growing up, a lot of people thought maybe I was Chinese or Japanese because being Korean wasn't a normal thing in my community. Korea wasn't really even that well known back in the day. When you do buy Asian products, normally they're Japanese, like Sony or Panasonic, Mitsubishi, Toyota. Those are the things that the society is more accustomed to being exposed to. So didn't really know what being Asian American really was because I was so isolated within my own community. Obviously, I knew that my roots were from Korea and that I was Korean and all that kind of stuff, but it was never an issue of, I got to let people know I'm Korean, or it wasn't an issue of being, made fun of because you were a minority or you're Asian or anything like that. So I don't know if race was really a factor for our community. When I was 13, I fell in love with baseball. So all I cared about was becoming a baseball player growing up. Seattle Mariners was our hometown team. During that time, Ken Griffey Jr. who's now in the Hall of Fame, was the star of the team, and went to the University of Washington, the Washington Huskies, and went there for throughout my college career. Walked onto the baseball team and then got cut, but then ended up playing football my senior year of college. Baseball was always something that was in my sights, but I also knew coming back to reality that it wouldn't be that simple to just go pro. But even if I wasn't going into the business as a player, I wanted to figure out if there was a way that I can work for a team in coaching or player development or in the marketing department, some front office job for a team that I would enjoy rooting for at the same time working for. So I sent resumes to every team that I wanted to, possibly potentially work for on the West Coast. But I ended up, getting into entertainment. 2004, 2005 was a time where I was exposed to Korean contents. I took a quick vacation, winter vacation, to Korea, and I had an opportunity to watch a Korean film called The Brotherhood of War. The Korean title is Taegukgi 휘날리며. And not knowing much background on the film, it was like, you know, one of 7, 8 films that was available to screen at the time. And I went in to watch it. At that point in time, I literally didn't, speak much Korean. I couldn't read, didn't really understand anything except for, small nuances or just, regular household conversations that you would have with your parents. With that level of Korean, I went into that theater and I watched that film without subtitles, have you, being in the film business and being interested in certain aspects of the business, from the production value to who's in the film and who directed it and what kind of background and music is being played in the back, and all that kind of stuff just really comes in and out of your brain when you're watching contents. Putting all those elements together and watching this film, I was like, wow, this is a really, really well put together movie. I came back to LA and I told my boss, I'm like, I saw this movie. I think it's incredible. We've seen a lot of Japanese films and a lot of a lot of Chinese films, but I haven't seen any Korean films. Why is that? And that was me speaking with a very naive manner. not because I felt like I had to say something. I just asked him. It's like, well, honestly, we don't really. Korea is not really a big market. We don't really know the market. Happy to take a look at it if you think it's something that is interesting. And so the team looked at it and ended up picking it up. And Sony ended up doing DVD distribution, and Samuel Goldwyn ended up doing theatrical for the U.S. market. And from what I can remember, it was the first Korean film to be ever screened in the U.S. market in U.S. theaters. And so that kind of became my little bit of claim to fame to wanting to pursue and take a lot more care and notoriety into trying to let Korean content be known in the industry. Through that experience, I got to meet the directors and the actors that were involved, and one thing led to the next. Just started accumulating my network and learned more about the Korean film, production and the history. But being able to uh, have um, a small piece of bringing the Brotherhood of War to the U.S. left a kind of a warm fuzzy feeling in my heart because it gave me an opportunity to show my parents that, hey, I brought a Korean movie, you should see it, and invite some of my Korean friends that were living in LA that weren't able to see the film to watch it. For me, that was really uh, made me feel proud that I was able to do something like that. In 2009, Sony transferred me to Korea to oversee the marketing distribution in the Korea office. The mission was to come here to figure out a way to do local language production. But I think at that time we were a little too far ahead of the game, and it was a little too early for something like that for local offices to want to take a risk. So, I was just there doing marketing and distribution for a couple of years until I got scouted to another company in 2011. When I moved to Korea in 2009, I didn't realize how naive I was. I mean, I grew up in Mercer Island, Washington. I didn't know anything about being Korean or being Asian, really. So moving to Korea was super exciting, but at the same time, a really, really big culture shock for me. The only thing Korean about me is the way I look. And I was very naive and didn't understand the culture. I was just excited to be here. When I came to Korea, I thought everyone would be waiting for me with open arms because every time I met Koreans in other types of sceneries in different towns, they were all excited to see me, and I was excited to see them. But man, when I got here, it's like I was like a target. They didn't want me here, so that was tough at first. I thought I was everybody's best friend when I first got here, but I realized that people were being nice to me because I came from a global company, and that's what they wanted. They didn't want me as Q. They wanted Sony. You know what I mean? So those were some discouraging and heartbreaking moments that I had experienced when I first moved to Korea, the first few years. And I think over the 13 years I've been here, I've been able to adapt and learn and accept. The longer that I want to extend my stay, the longer that I have to adapt and do as the Romans do in Rome. Um, so for me, that was a big lesson. 2011, I changed companies. I got scouted to a VC, specifically focused on film investment. They told me that they would pay me double what Sony was paying me, and I was naive enough to take it because of the money. I had a 2-year deal there. I fulfilled a year, and then I ended up leaving. And then all of a sudden, Gangnam Style happened. That just put me on cloud nine for the next few years after that. That's another story that just happened out of the blue. Um, Totally unexpected. July 15th of 2012, Gangnam Style was released on YouTube through YG Entertainment and whatnot. Through YouTube's algorithm, it got through to the US and people started seeing it there a little bit. And then Justin Bieber's manager, Scooter Braun, had come across it through his team, thought it was a really fun video, reached out to me, since we all had existing relationships in the past, and said, "Hey, you're the only Korean guy that we know that we're friends with. Can you find this guy?" I actually, at the time, had a really good relationship with a singer in Korea named Yoon Do-yeon, who's the lead of a singer called the YB Band, which is a rock band here in Korea. And I asked him to introduce me to Psy, so I can present him with an opportunity that people in the U.S. want to do, which was to buy the rights to the song and possibly even promote him in the US. So, that took a couple days for me to get in touch with him. Met with Sai, 2 days later. And it took me a good 2 weeks to really convince him to go to LA with me to meet Scooter and see what we could possibly, uh, build. One thing led to the next. His song was on the radio. We were at Dodger Stadium, dancing to the song during the seventh inning stretch. Scooter put him on the Ellen Show, did a mashup with MC Hammer, Too Legit to Quit. He was on the AMA stage and he was on the Good Morning Show. And literally overnight, within less than a month, this opportunity that just came out of nowhere became a global anthem, this global virus that just took over the planet. And it was totally unexpected. And then Yoon Do-yeon went on national TV in Korea and said he had introduced me to Psy, and I was the one that took Psy to America to do this stuff with Scooter. And the media just went crazy. And it wasn't something I was trying to do, but it happened. And all of a sudden, I became this media magnet in Korea because of the disaster that we caused with with Gangnam Style. I had to figure out a way to, you know, keep my head at sea level at the same time, maintain the influence that I had so that I could create opportunities for people around me and go back to what I was good at, which is marketing, distribution, and film production and whatnot. And then after a couple of years later, between 2013 through 2017, I was producing Korean films. Co-produced a film called Operation Chromite, uh, which is which is based on the Korean War as well. The Korean title is Incheon Sangguk Jakjeon, directed by John H. Lee. And then I was able to invite Liam Neeson to come to Korea to film the film, and Jung Jae Lee, who's the star of Squid Game right now, was also the star of our film. So not only was I able to try to influence Koreans to build opportunities in the U.S., I was able to bring Hollywood talent to also participate in Korean films. So it all kind of came full circle, and that's when things started to take off a little bit more than that. So it's been a good ride. It's been a crazy roller coaster ride. It's still going. I'm just trying to maintain it. My name is Q Lee, and this is my Korean American story.